Welcome to Bots and Beyond, your weekly dose of all things automation, mixing up end user, vendor, and consultant experience to create your go-to podcast for bot-related insights. I am your host, Wayne Butterfield. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening. Welcome to Bots and Beyond, another great episode for you this week. And it's my pleasure to welcome Soren from ZeroNorth this week. We've got a great episode, and I know that because we actually first recorded this on Friday, or rather didn't record it. So a slight technical glitch. So thank you, Soren, for doing this a second time.
Of course, no worries.
I now know you very well, but I would really like the audience to get to know who you are, what you do, and why you do it. So can you just give us your quick intro yourself?
Yeah, and first of all, thanks so much for taking the time and giving us the opportunity to give the perspective of ZeroNorth. So ZeroNorth is a software company, a startup, which has been spun out of Maersk Tankers. And what we do is we build software for the shipping industry, really to digitalize shipping for the climate. Meaning, how do we build and support the industry by using data and transforming data into actions and thereby drive down CO2 emissions? And when I say shipping, I think it's also important to note that our specific focus is on what we call tramp shipping. So it's basically the taxis of the seas. So it's vessels that never know where they're going. They are always in a constant changing environment. And the value of the freight is keep on changing. And I think that's what it makes it super exciting, is that you're trying to build software for something that's totally unpredictable and keeps on changing. And that's basically what we do in ZeroNorth.
Fantastic. And if you learn nothing more during this episode, you will at least now know that tramp shipping, which was a new one on me, is basically the taxis of the water, the taxis of the sea. So excellent. No, that's really great. And there's one point there I really want to kind of zero in on. It's around the use of data, of course. And when we spoke before, there was, we're not just talking about tens or hundreds of data points here. We're talking about tens of thousands of data points. Can you tell us a little bit about what this data is? Where's the data from? How is it used?
So you have to imagine that if you take a vessel and you're going from Rotterdam to New York, right, and you start out on your voyage. Well, if it was a car, you know exactly like the road ahead, and you'll be able to predict much more accurate on what is the path you want to take. But when you go to the seas, a big driver of how you're going to navigate from A to B is really around the weather. So that's one big data point of really the weather input on that one. The second one is the vessel itself. So again, from the cars, you know that each car have a different fuel type of consumption. The vessels is even bigger difference between that. So the whole understanding of what is the fuel consumption on a vessel is a very big part of it as well. And then there's more commercial data, such as what is the earnings for the vessels, or what is the fuel for the vessel costing, and then where's the vessels going and where's the orders. So there's multiple different sets of data that is coming together in order to predict and understand, okay, what's the most optimal way from getting from A to B.
Fantastic. And I guess one of the things that you're making use of in order to help with that data is AI. Kind of talk to us about the technologies that you're using. What's kind of under the hood at ZeroNorth?
Yeah, and of course that is what attracts talent to ZeroNorth, is actually the underlying technology that we're building, right? Really solving challenging problems. And what we're using AI for right now is really the prediction of the fuel consumption of a vessel. So it's around understanding what is in any kind of like wave height or currents, if it's coming aft or in forefront of the vessel. It's all about understanding what is the fuel consumption of that. And then each vessel is actually also very much an independent asset. And if you put one type of paint on a vessel versus another, there can be like 5-10% different fuel consumption of that vessel. And that goes to CO2 emissions as well, right? So it's all of that we are really trying to predict by using AI right now.
Great. And are you looking at any other technologies? So we mentioned kind of AI, and I guess there's a large use of machine learning specifically. Is there anything else or any other technologies under the hood that are interesting? You mentioned talent as well. Really interesting point. We know that certainly strong data scientists are, they're not round every corner. So it'd be really great to kind of dig into, how are you attracting talent actually? Is it the fact that you're solving a problem that other people haven't solved? Is it to do with the environmental benefits that you're looking to gain? So is there almost an environmental reason why people are really interested? I guess that would be something that would be interesting to understand.
Mm-mm. Yeah, and talent definitely. So ZeroNorth was started 2020, January 2020, right? And there we were 6 people. And now we are in Copenhagen, we are close to 35, and then we have a team in Poland as well, right? And if we add it all up, we're close to 50 people. And that what is attractive, I think, at least what our employees are telling us and why people are taking up the challenge, is actually a combination of the things that you're mentioning. It is solving super challenging questions, right? I think that is something that really talent are looking for. But then at the same time, it is also that they can see, hey, both by solving these, it can have a strong environmental impact. So the tram shipping industry, as we mentioned, right, is 33,000 vessels. They have around $100 billion in turnover on those vessels. And they are spending around, I don't know, $40 billion on fuel. And then they're having between 350 to 400 million metric tons of CO2 emissions every year from those vessels. So the numbers are quite big, and meaning that even that we're saying, okay, we're around 50 people in ZeroNorth, the individual's impact can be super significant on the environment by solving some of the challenges that we are solving. And I think the last part of that is it's great that you have an interesting problem. It's great that you can do something environment. But I think that the main thing that we are seeing being important is the people that you work with, right? So the ability to create a team spirit around you, and that you have like-minded thinkers. That's something. So it's people where you have fun while you're solving them is very important when you are attracting talent. So how do you build cultures in companies is definitely something that we are very high on our agenda as well.
Great, and obviously it's a difficult problem. But also, if you think about it, trying to transform an industry, any industry, is a real challenge. So it'd be great to kind of get your view on how the industry has reacted to what you're trying to do. What's worked well. What are you still struggling with? Shipping in general, you wouldn't say has been at the forefront really of the technological revolution. So what changed now? Like what's different now, and how is the industry kind of reacting to ZeroNorth?
So it's a great point because of course it's all around timing when you build software and you want to start up something. And I hear this point a lot, that the shipping industry is not willing to change or has not changed, right? And now when we look into this, I think it's coming back to the point we talked about of data, because the industry is fairly fragmented. If you take the largest players in the industry, they for the tram shipping again, maybe they are having 5-6% market share. So because the market is super fragmented, the data is equally fragmented. And I think that's what we make a difference by adding them to ZeroNorth. Well, we escalate fairly fast on the data side, and we have more data than the largest players in the market. So it creates this data network effect that the more is coming to use the platform, the better that it gets for everyone, because not one single party in the chain has enough data to actually build the software. So I think that's one aspect of where the shipping industry. Then you talked around other technologies as well earlier, and what is that we have on that. And we have a very strong belief that we should translate data into actions, and we should do it in a user interface that's as easy to use as any other software that you're using day to day. So we have quite a big part of our company that is really focused on the front end, on user experience, and building great designs so that it's as easy to use as anything else as well. And I think that's also what the industry have faced earlier, is that they are like, seeing solutions that's, I think, too complex and trying to expose too much data instead of translating into what should I do. And I think that's definitely what we have focused on as well, is make it super easy. And it's not about building dashboards. It's about turning data into actions. And that's exactly what we do as well.
Fantastic. And are those actions, just to kind of dig in a little bit more, are they going back to the ship's owners? Are they going to the ship's captain? I mean, whereabouts are the actions? Whose hands are the actions kind of put into? Is it the owners? And this is a strange, I think, how the Tramp shipping works is that they don't own the cargo per se. They literally own the vehicle. It's a strange one for others to kind of get their heads round. So where are the actions? Are they with the captain? Are they with the ship's owners? Are they with the cargo? I guess the people who are asking for the cargo to be moved. Can you give us a little bit more insight into that?
And I like the analog around the car industry as well, right? Because if you are going to rent a car from a big rental company, right? Well, they own the car, or they might not even own it. They might just lease it from somebody else. But at least you're renting the the vehicle and going from A to B, right? And as soon as you pick up the car, they will tell you something around the fuel consumption of that car. And then they will also be able to. There's a fairly accurate measure in the car around how much fuel is left on board. The ship industry is a little bit the same, right? That the vessel owners actually not often operate commercially the vessel themselves. So they will rent out or charter out the vessel for a shorter or longer period to vessel operators. And those could be the one that is transporting the cargo themselves, or it could be a specific company that is doing vessel operations. And when the vessel owner do that chartering out, the contractual relationship between them is like, I say, fairly loose, because it's saying what on the fuel consumption. It's telling the vessel operator that in good weather, this is what the vessel will consume. So it's a little bit like saying, okay, you rented your car at the rental company and saying, if you drive a straight line in good weather and don't turn, this is a consumption of your vehicle. And then good luck on figuring out when you're running out and how much you're using. Where, of course, when you drive, you don't go on a straight line. You don't go in a certain temperature. You keep on changing direction, speeds, and everything else. And the vessel is the same, just with a much bigger impact. So what we target is actually those vessel operators that doesn't have any insight to the vessels because they don't own the vessels themselves. What we do is we aggregate an enormous amount of data up, and then we empower those vessel operators. So you can call it like the taxi dispatch central. That's actually understanding what is the vessel doing, and then they will guide the vessel on what speed to go at.
Fantastic. And I guess that's kind of, a large problem. Are there any other kind of problems that you are looking to attack? So I guess one of the things I've always associated historically as a problem within the shipping industry is bill of landing. Now, I know that's a very different problem. It's probably more of an OCR and an image recognition, a machine vision type problem. But it's clearly one, in a similar vein that is and does affect just about every ship on the seas. Are there any other industry challenges that you think need solving, even if it's not now, but in the future, including things like bill of landing?
So what we do is very much on the operation of the vessel. So what we have already also built, besides being like how to get from a fuel consumption most optimal from A to B, or actually how do you make most money around getting from A to B, we also build a feature around planning your fueling of the vessel. So like where, when, and how much you should fuel up on your vessel. So it's a little bit, again, if your car told you which gas station should you fill up, or where should you charge your EV vehicle, right? We have done the same. And what we really like around that one is, again, aggregating the data up, because we are also very strong believer that over time, this industry will transform the fuel to a more sustainable fuel type. But because the industry is so fragmented, I think it would be if I was doing the new fuel for the future and I wanted to sell it to shipping, I would go for liner business. So a container line that knows exactly where they're going over and over again. But if I wanted to sell that to the tramp shipping industry for vessels where they never know where they're going, I think it would be more challenging to say, how do I go to market? By us building this feature around understanding where, when, and how much each vessel are fueling, we can actually be that data aggregator that can help a new supplier saying where should they set up the supply chain, who are their customers, and thereby we can support the industry on the CO2 party as well. So that's one. So the fueling of the vessels. But then there's some paradigms within the industry of how do they work together. I already mentioned this around when you charter a vessel, you get like good weather, fuel consumptions. But how do we make that into a more dynamic so the owner and the charter are sitting on the same side? So when you look at the industry, there's like the ship owner and there's the charters. And I think it's around one of the challenges we want to go at is how do we get them to work together to optimize sitting on the same side of the table? And instead of like trying to be counterparts against each other, it's around how do they optimize together? So I think those are the ones that we really, with the paradigms of the industry, is really breaking down silos, using data to do that in a transparent way. I think those are the challenges that we can gain very much, both US dollar and CO2 impact on the shorter term.
Great. And one of the things I was thinking as you were speaking there was around, autonomous shipping. And I guess autonomous shipping still, if you think about that as maybe, what's going to happen in the future, it's still going to rely on something like a ZeroNorth in order to know, best route, where to go, all of those type of things. But just because something's autonomous doesn't mean it knows where it needs to get to. It might know where it needs to get to. It might not necessarily know what the best route is. So I was kind of thinking as you were talking there, it does autonomous shipping, does electric ships versus ones that require, fossil fuels change the dynamic. And I guess what would be your view on that? I kind of have a view now, and actually I think it's probably quite a positive one for you guys. But do you have a view on the other transformations that are happening in shipping and how they will affect ZeroNorth moving forward?
I think it's important as a startup, as we are, right, to stay razor focused on solving the problems here and now. And then, of course, you have some kind of imagination that over time that can build to something different, right? It's also like, why are we only focusing on tramp shipping and not liner business and so on, right? Well, I think we need to stay razor sharp. But if we take a little bit longer horizons and allow us that for just a second, of course, aggregating the data up and being able to understand the details of the operation of 33,000 vessels globally. Because let's say that now we are around 1,500 vessels that is using and committed to use our software, right? Let's imagine that in a few years we are doubling of that, right? Then we got 10% of the global tramp fleet that we have all the detailed insight of what's happening. Then it's fairly easy to think about that you can then actually attribute that over and say what's the rest of the market doing, and you can simulate a lot of the rest of the vessels, right? So when you have that, then of course that data can be empowering to then future technologies. As I talked about the fuel sustainability of a new fuel type, well, the use cases that you're mentioning, they will all need data to be able to get there, right? I think we can fuel that data and we can begin to support those kind of initiatives. So people can build on top of our data platform. And I think that's exactly the whole vision of us is being data centric. But we need to remember to add value now. We need to build software that is yielding both CO2 and US dollar emission, US dollar improvement and CO2 reduction right now, and not just think about what is there in 10 years.
Great. And I think that you kind of answered my next question. I was thinking about other industries where this type of technology is going to be useful. Of course, I was thinking airline. I guess those freight, even trains perhaps, although probably less so on the trains. But I know your answer is going to be that at the moment, yes, it's useful, but that laser focus is what is going to get us to a sustainable product that's well penetrated in a single area. But I'm thinking that there is a future perhaps outside of shipping that whether it's 12 months, 12 years, there's a future for ZeroNorth in potentially other areas, would you say?
Yeah, and 100%. The question will be, we need to stay razor sharp because the opportunity is enormous already just in the space that we are. So instead of trying to widen the total addressable market that we are addressing, I think it's about capturing market shares and not just for the revenue point of view, but for the data point of view. And you only capture data from the industry by providing them value back, right? So that is have to be our focus, is driving customer value from the data already available, and then we build from there.
Fantastic. Well, I think that kind of really helps cement the position of ZeroNorth now. I think it's an extremely noble venture that's looking at the use of data to do many things, drive down costs, but also that significant focus on CO2 emissions, and protecting the climate. So it's great how technology can be used, data can be used to help do many things. Yes, generate more revenue, profit, but also increase sustainability of an industry. So amazing conversation, Soren. Thank you ever so much for taking the time twice to speak with me. I'm pleased to say the conversation the second time round was just as enlightening. So thank you very much.
No, thank you so much. And I think it's like just closing on this is of course why I've taken the journey on ZeroNorth myself, right? Because I think we can make a real impact. And I can look to my kids and I can look them in the eyes and saying, hey, I actually did something. Being in oil industry for 25 years now, I think it's time for change. And this is what gets me up in the morning and really drives my engagement in ZeroNorth, besides working with some awesome and very fun people. So thank you very much for listening and hearing our story.
Brilliant. And I look forward to listening back to this on one of my runs later this week. I'm sure the rest of the audience will enjoy this. Of course, any feedback, questions, queries for Soren, he'll be linked into the promotional posts on LinkedIn. I'm sure I'll be really happy to answer any of your questions. So thank you for listening.